So another way to add layers of clay without actually needing to add a full slab like we did on the head for the hair here, is just taking a little bit of clay. Got just a piece here from what I pulled out of the inside of my sculpture. And I'm going to roll this into a much thinner coil. Okay, so remember your coil rolling skills. And I'm going to roll that pretty thin. I don't need a very thick piece, at least for the area I'm going to be focusing on, which is her neckline right here on her shirt. Okay, so I want to make her shirt look like it's sitting more on top of her skin. Okay, so where the neck comes in, I want that shirt, that neckline to just stick out a little bit. Okay, so I've got my clay rolled pretty thin here. Okay, and it's almost like I'm kind of building a little necklace onto her. Now I didn't make it quite long enough for it to come all the way around the back, but I can just take a second coil and add that on there. But let me focus first on this coil on the front. Okay, so just like with any connection, we're going to give it a little bit of scoring and slipping. All right, add a little bit of slip. I'm just going to add it to the coil here, okay, so I don't get slip just all over the front of her. All right, and then I'm just going to drape that back around on top of that score mark that I made. Make sure that the coil is slip side down so you get a nice solid attachment. Okay, don't forget to add that pressure. Might see a little bit of slip squeeze out. That is perfectly fine. I'm going to actually give it enough pressure to kind of flatten out that coil a little bit. And as I'm flattening it, I'm kind of pulling down. So I'm pulling down that way, away from her neck. What I'm trying to do is I'm trying to get that bottom part of that coil to sort of fill in, transition pretty cleanly into the rest of her shirt here. And if your fingers aren't having it, okay, if they're not quite doing the trick, use the edge of your spoon. And that's when you can really pull that clay together and make it look like it was always just one solid piece. Okay, so I'll take my finger along that side. Just smooth it out a little bit. And you can see now that looks like her shirt is just coming up over her neck and sitting right on top. So compared to this side where you can still see that little seam at the base of the coil versus this side now that's been a little bit smoothed over, that should be taken care of so that there's no question about that being all one piece. All right, and lastly, once I've got that well attached and the bottom part of that coil smoothed out, I'm just going to take a wet paintbrush, dip it in water, kind of scrape off the excess, and then I'm just going to go in, kind of brush the inside of that neckline. And I'm getting rid of some of that slip that might have squeezed out in the process, any little clay crumbs that were left over from scoring the clay. Just want to give it a nice, clean, pulled together look. And you might find this beneficial to do with other areas that you're putting texture into, using your tool to give a little bit of texture to a specific area, and then just going over it with a little bit of water in your brush. I think really cleans it up nicely and brings it all together in a very clean, tidy manner. So it's just one of those little details, one of those little areas of craftsmanship that we have talked about, taking care of the small things in order to make the whole piece overall look really, really nice, really cared for. Okay. Another way to get a more effect, which I will be doing right here on the wrist, transitioning from the shirt into the hand. I could easily go in and do the same thing I did with the neckline, but I want to give you guys some options to work with. So if that's easy for you to do, great, go ahead and take that route. But another option is to use a tool that has kind of a sharp corner on it to push the clay inward while leaving the other side sticking out. So in this case, I want my sleeve here to look similar to the neck or the collar of my shirt, where it looks like it's sitting on top of my hand or my wrist there. Okay, so I'm going to use the sharp edge of a chopstick. Okay, so you'll see on, the end that isn't pointed. Usually if you get these in carry out, they come pieced together or connected together, and then you break them apart into two pieces, and you've got sort of a flat edge on one side. So I'm going to use this to my advantage, and I'm going to use that sharp corner there, okay, where that edge is. This is kind of difficult. Hold on, let me get into the right position. Okay, I'm going to use that edge, and I've already drawn a line here where I want that separation to be. And I'm going to just gently kind of rock and press that edge into the clay right along that line. Okay, so I'm making sure that I'm pressing each time pretty close, kind of overlapping the last one, so that I make a nice, neat, continuous line all the way around. Just a little rock, okay. The clay is still pretty soft at this point. I'll need to come in and, sorry, I've got to turn her away from you for a minute just to get back corner, okay. And then also underneath here to just finish that off. Okay, and then I could use my chopstick, the pointed end, to come in and kind of clean that connection point up. You can also use your toothpick. Sorry, my hand is in the way. To just pull that clay together a little bit more. both on the bottom and right here on the top. Just get in there and smooth that clay over, pull it together. Okay. And then again with the brush and a little bit of water, you can come in and just soften that transition a little bit. Kind of gets rid of some of that texture that might have been left behind by the chopstick if you don't like it or if it doesn't make sense right there in that area. So I'm not scrubbing so much with the bristles of the brush against it so that I remove that line entirely, just enough to soften it, kind of clean it up, and give it, leave that definition and give it a nice cleaner, pulled together look. Okay.